took me to Vines, man. It was nice. It was really nice.
And hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Hospitality Digital Marketing, show number 119. The numbers just keep going up. And with me is you may not recognize him. I mean, you know,
Give me a hard time.
the dude has too many clients is what it's boiling down to. But Mr. Stuart Butler is blessing us with his presence today and his wisdom and his insights from Fuel Travel. Mr. Stuart, dude, this is, I mean, and I got you to myself. It's not even like I got to share you, you know?
Yeah, we might actually be able to get some words in before Tim or Robert get on.
Robert show up, and Ed is off doing Thanksgiving with his son at school. So I know that Ed's not going to make it today. So I purposely put in a lot of topics that were controversial from his perspective. So that we can just have a one-sided lopped opinion as to why we think it's so super cool. Let's see. Brands are number one. Hotels are doing a great job with all of their social media, and there's no real platforms out there that do any better than they can do for themselves. What other shit?
And he'll email us after the show and tell us why we're wrong on everything we said.
Oh, of course that. I mean, because he has to make sure that somehow we will just out of record probably quote him at some point, just because his aura lives on, even if he's physically not in the show with us today. But
that's right.
Some cool stuff going on. Actually, it's always like towards the end of the year, it's like Google and Facebook start rolling out stuff, and then we either discover them or they announce them. Mm-hmm. And just some of the weird things that Google's doing, they're changing their algorithms up again. Well, I guess to be correct, they said they no longer announce because they're always changing stuff. Yeah. But every once in a while, it raises a flag with people that they've noticed something substantial change to all that. One of the things I noticed that they rolled out quietly, but has the effect, and we talked about a little bit last week, was Google's new way of hotel finders. Not in the U.S. yet, but it is in Europe. I think they're in Asia. I think they're running in both markets, everything but North America at this point. They've changed their model of how to help discover hotels with rates and rate indication of whether they're going up or down. Let's see, Hopper's doing that in New York right now. Right. They have a group of hotels. There was a neat video. I don't like playing videos on a live show, but I'll make sure the link is in with our stuff. From Focusrite, and I'm going to quote a lot of Focusrite until Robert shows up, because he's just going to flood us with his
rundown of this. You
know, is when I was at Focusrite and everybody was kissing my butt. But he has some great insights. But no, there was a video about how Hopper was showing what they're doing on their hotel awareness with their rates and so forth. Right. And they did some great visualizations in this video. I know it's like trying to describe red to somebody that is visually impaired. You know, it's like, but it's pretty cool stuff.
We talked about what they're doing on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and it's great. But I think, they're going to have limited reach. But with Google, what they're doing with Hotel Finder is really interesting. And we've been running, GHA ads for our clients for, goodness, probably 3 or 4 years now. And since we were one of the first companies to get authorized, and it's great from an ROI perspective, but it's always been a little kind of anemic. It just doesn't have the volume. To put it in context, I was talking to one of my clients about their August data, because that was we were just analyzing the peak season. They're a summer vacation destination, and they had 9 properties, had about 83 bookings from GHA, and during that same period, from TripAdvisor, and we're both on Trip Connect and Instant Booking, they had, in just a single week in August, they had about 10 times that, right? Yeah. So even though it's got a lot of promise, and I really do think Google long-term wants to disintermediate the OTAs, they're a long way from doing that from a volume perspective. And it makes sense, right? Because if you look at travel revenue for Google, it's about $11.8 billion a year. About $8 billion of that is coming directly from Priceline Group and Expedia. So they can't just switch that off and start driving it direct overnight. They got to go slow and steady. But they're doing a lot of testing in GHA. They've started showing room listings, so you can actually view individual unit types in a little more detail, stuff like that. So definitely, I encourage everyone to dabble in it. It's not going to be a huge impact at this point, but if you're not there, what we always say is the OTAs are there and they're stealing your bookings. So you got to be there. There's a defensive mechanism right now.
Yeah, I remember when they first rolled out the concept and it was rolling out, and we had a discussion back in the show then, is like, they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them right now. by cutting them out and saying, no, we're only going to do our way of doing this. But there will be a critical mass. To your point, eventually it's too good not to have it continue on. Right. That eventually it has the potential to reach that critical mass that, they might just say, look, OTAs, we're not going to allow you to keep paying for the space. We're going to make everything go through this. And I think it's also a perspective issue from a usability that people just see Google as a discovery aspect, and they don't see it often as the facilitation of the completion of the purchase and so forth. Exactly, all right, let's get a few more statements. Focus right. Okay, see, we got to say 5 times before it look like a genie.
And Robert shows up. Yeah,
it's like Beetlejuice.
That's funny. We have a drunken head. No,
oh, there he is, Mr. Mr. Robert Colwood.
I need my football. Yeah, my football jersey.
A football has been very, very good to me. Yes, and Mr. Robert Cole, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well. Sorry, one of those pesky clients who just wanted to keep.
Well, Stuart shed that problem. He just said, "Forget it. We're not worried about income. We're just."
I fired all my clients. So I could be here.
Exactly.
My life would be so easy if I didn't have clients or employees. It would.
It would.
Yeah.
Yes,
well, and that's why all companies want to automate and eliminate all labor by
automating. Well, just to jab at anybody in particular, you could just act like other agencies, and you'd have your wish come true.
Oh, like it. We would never do that here at Fuel. We love our clients. We love our employees.
We do. Yes, indeed. Although I don't really have employees. I have ad hoc relationships. I refuse. I'm the anti-agency mentality. Right. I don't want that worry. I just want the client side and pontificate on soapbox on a regular basis and stuff. Mr. Robert, we got the word focus right in at least 6 times before you showed up. What's up with that? Usually you're like Superman. You can hear halfway around the world when somebody says focus right and you're there.
I don't work. I do work for Focusrite, but I don't work for. Speaking of employees, I am not a Focusrite employee.
No, that's true. That's true. You're above all that fray. You're a resource for Focusrite. You are one of those chosen few. Yes.
Me and Norm Rose and all those sorts of guys. Yep. I think Norm's been freelancing with them since the beginning. But But so what were you saying about the Focusrite? Like just the conference or the
no. The video related to Hopper's presentation. The visualization that they used was really quite nice. Actually, do you have that in a short little link you can grab? Because I was going to look for
there's one page I can find which has all of the videos from every presentation.
Oh, that would be nice.
They're all gathered there.
I was impressed by the visualization that Hopper used. That blinking light, sped up time cycle of data inquiry and stuff like that. Yeah. I thought that was a nice visualization.
Yeah, the interesting thing on that visualization, that was 30 New York hotels, I believe.
Yes.
And that's it. That's all they have on the platform.
Right. But the reason why I brought the conversation up was we're talking about Google from last week's show that they're only in Europe right now in APAC working with their new Finder program, and of course Hopper's example of what they're trying to do on the pace of rates and so forth going into a market with New York with the handful of hotels that they have.
And it is the interesting thing for them, and they've done an excellent job on the airfare side. They are a very, very interesting startup that has survived where most startups don't. They received their total investment has been about $83 million. So there is a lot of money. And that was years ago. That was 5 or 6 years ago. And I don't believe they're profitable now. Maybe they are on the air side. I don't know. But they're plugging away, and they did a lot of work, and they had enough runway and patience from their investors to say, keep building this. We think this is hard stuff. Let's get it right. The hotel side, if they were a traditional startup who didn't have kind of that benevolent investment thing, would never happen. Because anybody who's looking at it would go, wait, what's your sales cycle to go sign up an incremental, an incremental hotel or something like that? And it's a long time. I mean, and they've got Scott Brodos working for him. Scott's a great guy. He used to work for me at Sabre. Really smart. He's heading up their biz dev stuff, but they really need some tight integration with the hotel of knowing here's what's going on in the rooms. Here's all of this. And again, 30 of, and they're kind of, what I've told the guys, because I saw a presentation before it was launched, I really like kind of their curated nature of it, where it's almost like what Hipmunk did. Hipmunk had all this data from ITA software, right, on their platform, and they built their agony scale, and they said, which was great, right? And so they filtered out all the crap. I mean, why do you want to leave wherever Dallas at 6 o'clock in the morning to get into New York at 2 p.m. in the afternoon with a stop in Chicago, paying $700 when you can fly on the same airline nonstop, leaving at 9, getting in at noon or something? I mean, the other flight, just why even look at it, sort of thing. So the interesting thing for Hopper is going to be, how do they curate this? They're almost dealing with it almost like a tour operator, going, these are, we think, the highest demand or best properties to work with. But the dynamics of hotels are, sometimes you can have other hotels with really great pricing, or it's a better hotel that normally wouldn't be high. Who knows, right? So that's why obviously all the OTA, Booking.com, yes, we've got 500,000 hotels. They've got everything. They aren't directing traffic into anybody, except if somebody's paying them some incentives to move up the sort order or to do a little ad or something. They're just trying to convert a sale. They don't care where. Hopper probably be successful and really monetize, kind of needs to get into that realm, because their technology figures out these are the best deals and the best times to buy, and the bigger universe of properties you have, the better that gets, right? I mean, the more data they have, it gets better. So with only 30 hotels in New York, they don't have great data. Right.
No.
And that's
but they're proving concept. They're proving concept, though.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing for them.
And so it's going to be a long, long haul for them. I don't think they have it's not like a Booking.com where it's this easy do-it-yourself onboarding, which I think Expedia is now kind of copied a little bit for the smaller properties. They don't have that sort of thing, right? I think it's more of a heavy lifting, figuring out what kind of beds and they can do, they can break it down to some pretty interesting things. But again, how deep are they going into the real content of those rooms and the pricing? I think they're only doing room category level, not necessarily room type level, which will be a problem. That will run into issues. So.
Well, Stuart, out of your podcast, what did you guys hit on some of that stuff when you were talking about it? What were some things?
I think if we make the assumption, they've assembled a great team there, and they have a lot of capital to invest. So let's fast forward 12, 24 months to where they have the data, right, and look at the promise that it delivers. And I think from a consumer perspective, there's a huge value proposition in terms of making it easier for me to make a decision about where I'm going to stay. And that's really going to become more and more important about when to buy and where to buy as voice search takes off, right? Because we're not going to have a visual interface necessarily to be able to sort and do some of the stuff mechanically that we're doing now. It's going to have to be a lot more intuitive, a lot more automated through AI. So I think the promise they deliver, especially on the training guests when to book, it's going to polarize the industry. I think you're going to find half the industry that have their arms around rate parity and rate management in general, where they're yielding up as inventory decreases. These guys are going to love what happens from a consumer perspective. The guys that are lazy with their rate management strategy, where their rate management is not in line with their marketing strategy, and where they're tending to discount closer in, those guys are going to really get exposed by a tool like Hopper, and they're going to struggle as well. It's going to eat away their profit. So as a consumer, I love the promise it delivers, but I'm with Robert. It's a long way off before it really can deliver what it's promising.
Yeah. When you look at, they have 30 and the universe is what? 500,000 to catch up to
just
Booking.com.
It's a lot.
Say hi to Darlene. Darlene's joined us in the chat room today.
Oh,
hi Darlene. Hey, Darlene. Hey, you want to jump on? We got empty screens. More than empty chairs. I mean, we know Ed's not going to show up and all that kind of fun stuff. And we could.
That right there will attract Darlene. No, Ed's not here.
Why do you think I'm here? Why do you think I'm here this week?
That's right.
But I'm also concerned about the fact that the AI component of this is a potential too. Is that if they get to scale on the data acquisition part of this, and you start throwing AI in this, you're almost turning into an automated stock market, because you could influence the market, just because as AI begins to react to other price fluctuations, everyone could be diving on rate just because like the stock market. When prices go down, all these automated things start kicking in, and you create your own crash kind of scenario. So it's kind of scary to think that the more you take the hand off the tiller, the more that these things can pop up with.
Yeah, again, that's why the smart, savvy rate managers are going to like this tool, right? Because they're going to see these other people kamikaze themselves when there's little fluctuations.
I like that term, kamikaze. Yeah, that's an excellent perspective, honestly.
Well, and the number of groups, and I've just posted the link for all the Focusrite sessions. So there are 3 tabs on it. I think you have to put in your email address so they know who's looking at it, but it's free. And so they have center stage. Those are all like the main CEOs and Frederick's keynote on Hopper and things like that. But then there's also Launch and Summit. Launch are the established companies, so I think there are 12 of them that present on kind of innovative sort of things they're working on. And then the Summit ones are kind of the smaller startup companies. So you have videos on all of those, so you can go, if you hear of one that presented, you can go and look at it. So yeah, it's good. But sorry, one thing I was going to say, there were a lot of the startups that I was kind of railing on. There's actually a little video on FocusWire, which is Kevin May's new venture in cooperation with Focusrite, on some of these, which I call kind of superficial companies, that they're basically looking at thriving off of anomalies within hotel revenue management, right? Where there's a problem with this, and there was one where if you split the stay into 2 pieces, they would then break it up. So you book you make a reservation for 4 days, and then they come in and do 2 days and 2 days, and it's less or something like that. And you kind of go, okay, doesn't always work that way. Number one, it can get higher. I mean, it really depends on how the hotel's revenue management, and these guys have no idea on the revenue management strategy. It's just kind of a pitch. And so a bunch of them were just kind of doing little things like that, reselling canceled reservations and all sorts of things like that. I always hate these things that open up the secondary markets, and turn it into a stock market. Hey, you've got a booking, and throw it over here into something, and other people will do it, and we make money on it. And you go, that just like the stock market doesn't directly benefit the company that it is. It's just people betting on crap, right? I mean, fundamentally. So outside of the IPO,
trying to join us, but Darlene, are you on audio and video, or just you're popping up on the screen but haven't quite got with us yet? I'm not.
It's just very dark.
It is very dark. Yes, it's a very dark place you're in, Darlene. Yes. hopefully, whatever technology catch up with us on that one, but thank you for the link on that one. I also I just thought this was a fun stat that I threw into it, and that is the 10 hours and 48 minutes of daily consumable media by people.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know that the Facebook number is spooky when you say it's 3.5 hours spent or something like that just on Facebook. Yep. But considering that most waking hours, that means that very little time is spent other than at some point always being inundated with consumable media. I mean, that's just a massive amount of time in my perspective with it. I don't know, but that's just normal.
And you have to think of people, they're commuting, they've got their headsets on, and they're listening to podcasts or whatever, right?
Yeah, I've got guys in my office that have Netflix on in the background while they're working, and we can see their productivity if they get into work done. I don't really care.
I can't even listen to music when working. For some reason, my wife listens to music when work. Some people, I always ask people, do you listen to music when work? Oh yeah, I have to. And it's like, I can't. When I listen to music, I just listen to music. For some reason, that's my only focal point. But when I work, I usually keep it in silence. But that is if I actually do work. But that's another story entirely.
And I'm personally, I listen to podcasts and audiobooks every waking minute when I'm not, hands-on doing something else. If I'm running, if I'm cleaning the house, if I'm cooking, I'm listening. I'm consuming something the whole time.
Right. Or webinar schedules or reloads and stuff like that. I do that too. Is that I sign up for webinars I know I'm not going to attend just simply so I can get the playback on them a lot of times.
Right.
But I was at
most of the time I don't like the playback. I just want the deck.
Just
faster. I want the content. Well, but that's it. People want the content faster too, and they're getting spoiled on that. I like Stuart's little infographic of. That you can probably share that shows just the kind of the spectrum of all the devices and
all the things in the last 20 years or so. It's like instant gratification overload, right? If you think
absolutely,
the iPhone was only 10 years ago. The same year, 2007 is when iPhone and Netflix both came out, right? So in the last decade, we've gone from really having to wait for anything to not having to wait for anything. And it's getting even crazier now with Apple Watches. I don't even have to pull my phone out of my pocket. It's right there.
I know.
I know.
This version 3 has literally changed my behavior of what I do. Because of that Siri screen, being able to go over and just see whatever is applicable at the time without having to say, oh, I want to put this in a little space here, a little space there, like the old version of the watch. Yeah. I mean, for me, it keeps me up to date more often than not. I answer the phone with it. Right. And I no longer feel weird about it. It's like, yeah, hey, I'll talk to you in a minute, whatever.
Right.
You know,
my wife is a preschool. She's director at a preschool, and she has a Series 3 Apple Watch now. She's not a tech junkie at all. I usually kind of introduce her to technology when I feel like it's ready for her or she's ready for it. And she does everything now on her watch, which and then look at kids and really how Alexa and or Echo and all these other devices have changed. We want what we want, when we want it, the way we want it, and we're consuming it 24/7. And you know, I was at OPMA, the conference this past week, and I gave a session on creating frictionless booking experiences and how to drive more direct bookings. And this was part of the conversation was, you know, millennials get a bad rap. We're blaming millennials for everything, but it's not a millennial problem. It's a technology problem, or not problem, but reality that technology has fundamentally changed how we consume everything, you know, and millennials adopted it first because that's what they grew up with. Now Gen X and everyone after that, boomers, etc., are adopting the same technology. They were just a little slower. But you know, none of us here are millennials, but all of us consume the same amount, you know. I read a stat where we open our mobile phones on average 150 times a day. And I didn't believe that number, so I started tallying it up, and I was actually over 150 times a day.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, you don't even really realize because of also the push notifications. I remember when I first got the first Apple Watch, and I didn't realize how much default notifications were coming through my phone until I was getting my watch and it was going ding, 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 because of course every app in the world was trying to get on the watch. They made an adjustment to their app. And it was like I was getting notifications on everything. I'm like, holy crap. I didn't realize how much of this stuff comes piling through. I shut almost everything off the watch, and then I went to my phone and realized I just need to shut it off there too, because there's just so much. Well, notifications of everything.
And 10 years from now, it's going to be, what? You opened your phone? You touched your phone? That's so weird. You know, it's like me talking to, and I still have, I've got a rack full of old technology here, right? Which I just keep around so my children are grounded, right? I've got a turntable, I've got a freaking Laserdisc player, a Beta, VHS.
You're gonna be that dude. You're gonna be that crazy old man at the end of the street. They're like, you know what? He's got that stuff like. They had like a phone. It was on a wall.
But that's the thing with all, you know, they look at it and go, wow, you know, you had to Laserdisc. The thing goes, it actually changes the side, so you didn't have to take it out. That was a big advance. And they're like, what the hell is the thing doing? It's like, it's flipping the side, and it's freaking big. It's the size of a regular, you know, 33 record, sort of vinyl record, and they're just like, that is so weird. And of course I've got a Blu-ray player and stuff like that, and how do I get my Netflix? Through the Blu-ray player, right? So you know, you just look at the variety of technology dating back to the, I don't know when the turntable started, but yeah, it's absolutely amazing, because they look at the turntable and go, you had to like walk over to it and put the thing on, and you can't see what song's which, and you have to look at something. That's just so inefficient. Why would you do that? And it's like, because it was the only way to listen to music.
That's right. My kids get pissed now when they ask for a song and it's not freely available. You know, for me to download right then, or on YouTube to stream through Bluetooth in the car. So we're on a road trip. It used to be there was a cassette would come out. You hoped that it was at the right spot or the right side, so you didn't have to fast forward all the way to the end and flip it over. But now it's instant gratification.
Yeah, and talk about millennials. I mean, I was when the cassette came out. right? That was before that it was reel-to-reel tapes, which were not really convenient to do stuff. But I mean, the cassettes came out, and all of a sudden people started sharing music because it was small. It's like, hey, I made a mixtape, go listen to this. Oh, that's really cool. What's that? And then of course I'd make a copy that was outrageously low fidelity and really bad, but still, the same thing of how do you share all of this stuff socially of what you like. And now it's become frictionless. So
Darlene couldn't be joined us. She was having some technical issues with her cam and mic. Darlene, I'm sorry about that. I'll send an invite back out again to you if that would be of any help, just to see what we want to try again. But and I got us finally on Periscope. It was bouncing back for some bizarre reason. Periscope's it's getting kind of quirky. Their live broadcasting.
I'm having problems with Periscope. It does.
Yeah, bitrate
speed. Maybe they aren't maintaining it anymore. So.
No, I mean it's been pretty. Right? Yeah. So, but their bitrate speed. With Periscope, you have to throttle your bitrate for it to work right.
Right.
And just sometimes, even when you do that, it has some quirky technology things to it. So Facebook's fine for us, YouTube's fine for us, but Periscope's been kind of squirky.
Squirky. I like that word.
Squirky.
When in doubt, make up a word.
That's
well, yeah. What? Yeah.
It's a perfectly cromulent word.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Interesting thing. I know it hit the national news with Facebook's indication that they were going this way. I had not known that Google was also doing the same thing. I found that out from this article, where they're going to start using or allowing us to indicate or have indicated the trustworthiness or validation of postings of things, which I thought was an interesting approach.
Whenever you're letting the population en masse determine something, it's going to go awry, right? Because if you've got right-wing people saying whether fake news is real or not, they're going to have an agenda. So I think it's not the solution. I think there needs to be a solution, but letting other people vote on it, it's nonsense.
You're not solving it. You're just really amplifying the same problem.
Yeah, you're going to amplify the same problem.
Well,
exactly.
My understanding is, they're doing something where they have these journalistic standards, but you really need kind of a spectrum for how far do these guys abide by these journalistic standards, right? It needs to be.
Well, the one that you shared, the chart that you shared from the article that you posted on Facebook. Do you have that available? You can throw that up as a link.
Which one? Oh, the
news article one. So
yeah. That's the political.
The political spectrum. Just as an example of what you're talking about, where there's for those who may not have seen it, is that if vertically up on the scale was the authentication or validity of the journalism quality as to its validation and accreditation and authenticity, and then to the left and the right of the spectrum, the east-west axis of it, was to the spectrum of liberalism versus conservatism, and in it was scattered all the publications as to their relative liberalism, conservatism, accuracy, or less than accuracy. I don't know what part of the interesting thing is that when you look at this, it's called The Chart version 3, because there have been other versions in the past, and people still argue about this. But it kind of goes. Remember Bruce Clay used to be. He was such ahead of everybody when he did the chart of who fed whom data. Remember way back, he had the Bruce Clay's guide to where everybody was getting their data from, and when the Googles and the Yahoos and everything were small entities compared to each other and everything. And then eventually it turned into the local who fed data to what, and that was a big spaghettigram and stuff.
Yeah.
Good visualizations as to now how the world has changed. Even
this
since
one here. Let me get this. Let me get this posted here.
So the challenge really is there's too many people producing content, right? Everyone's a content producer. Everyone's an expert. Everyone's an authority, and there's no way to discern the quality of that or the validity of that, right?
Or if they even exist,
right?
in real life.
Exactly. We've gone from a world where we were limited in what we could consume. It was a finite number of TV channels and a finite number of newspapers and maybe some radio stations, but they were all authorities. They were vetted. They were regulated, right? And now
Darlene put it up.
Oh,
now that doesn't exist. So we've got to find a way on the internet to sort through and add validation to specific organizations. And Google were doing a good job on the search engine side with their algorithm, really trying to give bonus points to brands, folks that get more brand recognition, people that have more of an established brand. that seems to be the way I think this kind of news media should go in terms of, okay, if it's a CNN, regardless of whether you're politically left or right, you've got to all admit that CNN is a more legitimate news source than like a Breitbart, right? So I think there needs to be some kind of scaling that limits the exposure to, Russian people that are putting out fake news to interrupt a political event.
And it's not just Russian; it's anybody, right?
Correct.
It's just because, and you can see on this chart, CNN ranks kind of low. They're kind of in the middle, right? Well below the main like ABC, NBC sort of groups. I mean, people were ripping on it, had MSNBC as being higher than CNN and things like that, and Fox News being below in terms of the.
Right.
But I think a lot of that is also just the commercial realities of the news business. I mean, they don't want boring regular news. I mean, if that was it, C-SPAN people would be all over it, right?
Well, yeah, no, but
that's not it. They want sensational people fighting, and they like that, right? It's like it's the whole gladiators sitting there.
Right. Popularity is certainly a component.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Right. And bring it to the hospitality side. We're inundated with. I mean, we make fun of them all the time. Clickbait titles of postings and so forth that has no content, because we're looking for sensationalism or traffic, because we think by generating the traffic then we can generate business from it and so forth. And I think that goes to a deeper question as to why marketing or digital online marketing for hoteliers or hospitality people is so challenging, because it's turned into such white noise for them. They're aware that platforms like Facebook can be useful and helpful. They're aware of the fact that paid campaigns can drive business, but to sort through the experts in the field and the diversity of the perspectives of so many people, and not knowing what is valid compared to what isn't, BS meter, so to speak. They're just paralysis by choice. That they have so many variations to what they're being offered. They don't know what to choose to even begin to know that difference. And I mean, and just to bring it to that point, it's like, I know what I do when I talk to a client about trying to clarify what they do. Any suggestions of how you guys handle when you're dealing with a client? Obviously, they're looking at you as skeptical as they would any of 10 other people they've talked to. You've yet to develop a unique relationship with them. How do you put them at ease that you're the person that they should be talking to, or that the resources that you're trying to discover for them is the best ones for them based on the situation they've given you as a problem?
I just tell them I personally know Tim Peter.
That is the secret. See, I've been using Ed's name, and the door's just been boom, boom.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's so weird. You mention Ed's name, and they call for security, and you go, "Wait, what did I say?"
Yeah, I'm Eddie Murphy in that first movie. I'll get tossed out the window. Yeah.
That's great. So,
no, but Fuel's approach is, we've been really blessed and fortunate that. We didn't jump into we want to scale for the sake of scaling. We've been around a long time, but we certainly haven't scaled as much as some other folks in our niche. But we go through a dating period with prospects. We get to know them, and we get to find out if it's a fit. Do we genuinely like each other? Do we share the same values? Can we genuinely help them? Before we get to you need to use our products because they're the best thing since sliced bread, which they happen to be. But we qualify first. We turn a lot of people away at Fuel because either we can't help them or we don't want to work with them because they're assholes. So
I've had that happen. I've had those where it's like, I could solve your problem, but I just don't like you to solve it. I'd like to solve it.
Life's too short to deal with pain in the ass clients, right? So we pick people that we like and that we'd be happy to go have a beer with, and that's what builds long-term relationships with us. But I've also found that we've increasingly and new conversations are coming from existing relationships, and this trust is already built in, right? Because they have a trusted person that said, this is what these guys are doing for us, and this is how long they've been doing it. And so it's a completely different conversation from the get-go. We're not going in there trying to sell them something. We're going in there as a consultant trying to help them solve their problems, and it eliminates a lot of the barriers of us having to pretend
I'll give you both
something we're not.
I'll give you both a compliment, and even though Ed and Ted aren't here, Ed and Ted, Tim. Ted's excellent.
He shall forever be known as Ted.
Ted, Ted. Is that you, from the conversations we've had the pleasure of having over this show and what have you, you're quick to admit when something isn't going right, or, hey, this wasn't the best thing. Let's learn from it and move on. I mean, most of the dialogue that you give, it's case examples. And Robert, you do the same thing. Is that, we were doing this, quickly realized this wasn't right, so we did that.
Yeah.
And rather than, and this is where we end up getting business from, at least I think so, is we usually follow behind the heels of somebody that didn't do that, that stayed rigid, like we're going to be right until we burn into a crisp, because we're not going to admit anything other than what we first said was the correct answer.
And that's how a lot of organizations work, because I kind of look at I was just having a conversation yesterday with a startup that I'm working with, and we're kind of in solicitation mode pretty heavily right now. But I mean, you have these guys, they're expending political capital to go say, hey, we should go try this new thing. And that's sometimes a difficult decision. And depending on the organization, the company, and how those work, you look at it and go, that's not it. I mean, do things bubble up like Marriott? I kind of look at is a bottom-up sort of organization. If you're going to go kind of penetrate, you can go try to pitch at the top, and you might be able to get through and do it, but it's probably not going to go get pushed down the funnel. But if you can get the right people being the champions of it, who can kind of ply their way through, that's okay. But you need to kind of understand how these work and have those proper content. Where another company, it's like, oh no, you've got to plug in at the top, and they will, that person, if they like it, are going to force it right down and go do it.
I think you hit something on a great statement by political capital. People don't understand. Well, those who have never worked in the corporate environment don't realize the mechanics of getting things done in a corporate environment. And you put at stake an opinion. You're putting chips on the table as to, because if you lose those chips. And so if you're the vendor that's being brought,
and maybe your job.
And well, eventually when you run out of chips,
because because there may be somebody on the other side who is fighting for whatever, a certain budget, and you want this allocation, right? And there's a limited amount of money. This is it. This is your project. You've proposed whatever ROI or whatever got justified. Yep, you want it, and it doesn't work. Boy, that other person on the other side, they want nothing more. Kill it fast and give the money to me and let me take my project. And companies work, and some companies work very effectively of climbing the corporate ladder, and I joke about over the broken bones of those below you. That's how they work.
There's a reason why there's a TV show called Shark Tank, because it is a metaphor for, in most business environments, that you go into every meeting frenemies, and you fight for your piece of the sandbox. But to what Stuart mentioned earlier, it's like you have to validate the value you're bringing to that person, to what you said, which is the political chips that they put on the table for what they're saying you can do for them. And where the fall goes is when a vendor is too willing to say yes to everything, regardless of whether it actually can be correct. You have to, I mean, it's almost more appreciated that you say, no, there's a limit to this, and no, that's not correct, and no, this is what we need to do differently, or whatever. Be honest about the opinion. And I think that, the privilege I have of talking with you guys is
I played that role for a number of years at a startup where I had worked with the CEO before, and or the president before, not the CEO, the president before, and I knew that he would exaggerate and build, and I was the sweeper, right? It's just like, what the hell did he commit? We don't do that, but it's some sort of major deal that's really important, and all of a sudden it's my job to figure out how the hell we can do this, because all of a sudden there's these expectations. We don't necessarily have we don't have the technology, we don't have the staff, we don't have the how do you make that stuff work? And there are a lot of companies like that. It's not always a fun place to work.
A lot of them are dishonest up front and then continue to be, right? They use attribution models or KPIs that are very disingenuous and don't really tell the full picture. Display marketing is notorious for that.
Heads they win, tails others lose.
Yeah, exactly.
And 84% of all statistics are made up right on the spot. I mean, you make a number anything you want to.
Exactly. So I really encourage people, all of your vendors, don't use their metrics. Use your own metrics. Determine your own success KPIs And that's what you measure on, because every vendor is going to show you the data that puts them in the best light, right? So,
and only the resources that they can bring to the table too. They're going to exclude what they can't bring. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we know vendors, and I'm not going to name them, but there's vendors out there that are claiming attribution for all of your direct bookings, when that's, I mean, common sense tells you that that's not the case, especially when you see that when you switched on the product and you switched off the product, there was no significant change in your total revenue, right?
By the way, not to technically geek out for just a second, not referring to anyone in particular, I'm having an issue on the book funnel on the opposite side right now of session resets in the book funnel, because, and this goes for anybody that's listening to the show, if you look at your analytics, whether it come from Omniture or whether you use it through Google, GA Analytics or anything like that, you'll notice that your book engine is a direct contributor for your revenue. If you look at the revenue contribution of your book channel, it's used as a direct reference. That's sometimes happening because of these third parties, or when there's a change of date in the funnel itself, it'll reset the session. So it kills it from the source into the book engine to being the book engine as a source. You need to actually modify your script behind the wall for tracking to indicate differently that it's not the book engine. They didn't just happen to go directly to your book engine, unless you're silly enough to do ads that drive them straight to the book button sometimes. But the behind the wall in the book funnel itself.
That's a great idea. Preset the dates, preset everything, and just boom, one click from the ad within the Google app. Buy it.
Yeah, we did an episode of the podcast recently where we looked at the different problems people are having with their analytics and tracking. And we're coming across increasing challenges, not just like the traditional cross-domain tracking issues, but because more and more vendors are relying on having to collect more data, they're putting more and more code snippets. And a lot of them are beginning to use Google Tag Manager, which is great. But when you've got 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different Google Tag Managers on the same site, it can work flawlessly, and it does, but it can create all kinds of problems. We ran into a situation recently with a vendor, and this was a complete mistake. There was no malice intent, but what was happening is their Google Tag Manager code was deleting the client ID from the Google session. So basically, even though we had cross-domain tracking coming in, anyone that hit the booking engine, because that's where their code was them, we were losing the client ID, right? So we pointed this out to them, and they were like, we're so glad because they just launched a new way of implementing the software, and they fixed it within a couple of days. But had we not caught that, had they not caught that could have been a major problem. In the data, people blindly believe data, and that would have been gospel for them, and
it wasn't malicious. That was a pure, honest mistake.
Pure accident, very reputable vendor, and they fixed it straight away. But
that is crazy.
It's really really difficult to get it right.
Well, and there are probably some people who, if you explicitly said exactly how they did it, they'd be taking notes, going, "Outstanding! We now have a business."
I know one vendor that does it deliberately and denies it, but you can look at the code and see that it's been happening.
Well, and then we had this conversation about, Google is creating their new parallel system, so that that it actually extracts out, load the site, and then parallel load the GTM and stuff on the side, so it doesn't slow. It'll render the page faster and cleaner. Just because of those issues, because even after they do a GTM show, they're still making it slow down because they're cramming too much crap in that too. I mean, it's like a free for all for data. I put this up because, Stuart, you said you're going to be here, and I said, what better thing to talk about, since you are like the de facto authority on the app world for us.
I thought you were going to say Star Wars. Okay, yeah.
Well, that too, and But anyway, I was going to go into the Star Wars geek world. I wasn't even just like, man, did you see this? But anyway, mobile website.
Now we're going to talk about the new trailer. Okay.
No. Focus. No, okay. Because I would too. I'm just so stoked about the thing coming up. Anyway, mobile websites versus apps. I don't know whether they had.
You just want a porg for Christmas. That's
I would love nothing but a real life porg.
Anyway, anything changed your mind about this article? Is just a reaffirmation? Is there enough content there? I mean,
I thought it was a good kind of summary, top level summary, and we talked about it a lot. We blogged about it. I think going back to episode 3 of our podcast, we talked about, does a hotel need a mobile app? There is a marked difference between an app and a mobile website. There's things you can do on an app you cannot physically do on a mobile website. Mobile key entry, for one, cannot happen unless you have an app. You have to access the low light Bluetooth or NFC within the phone. You have to have an app for that. Things like check-in, check-out.
Yeah, you don't want the capability to do it from the web either.
No, exactly.
That's a good thing that you have the app. That's very important. Yeah,
exactly. Communication's the other thing. You know, push notifications, being able to SMS and things like that directly from the app. Cannot do it really from the mobile web. So that on top of the data that you can collect in terms of usage, I think mobile apps and mobile websites are very different. You know, going back to what we were talking about earlier, we're opening our phones 150 times a day, right? Of that, over 90% of our time is spent in apps, not on the mobile web. Like, mobile apps are a lot more accessible. They live on your home screen. You don't have to go and find them like you do a website. They're right there once you've installed it. In the data that we're collecting, because again, full disclosure, we have a mobile app product called Guest Express. You can brand your own property and have it on the iOS and the Google Play Store. We're seeing tremendous downloads, tremendous usage, tremendous things like check-ins, tremendous revenue uptick from things like sending a push notifications to extend your stay or room upgrade or late checkout or drive people to the bar or whatever it is. So it's driving a ton of revenue. But what it's also doing, which I had no idea this was going to be the case, and we stumbled upon this stat a couple of weeks ago. Remember, Hilton put out their data and said 20% of all their bookings now are coming through their mobile app, and everyone's like, yeah, but they're a chain and it's business, and you know, leisure consumers aren't going to do that, especially independent hotels. We've got 5 different clients this year to date, have booked over $150,000 directly through their mobile app without pushing it. Like, these hotels are not telling people this is the way to book. They're not incentivizing that booking. That is natural, organic people that have booked through the app or stayed at the property before, used the app, come back the next year, and use the app to book. 5 clients, $150,000. For 2 of those, that's 3%. 3% of their total online bookings are now coming through their mobile app. So anyone that tells me that a mobile app for independent hotels is a waste of time, I have data that really contradicts that.
Where's Ed when you need him? You know, Ed would have something to say about this.
He probably would. But I really believe that it's going to grow tremendously. 2018, I think, is going to be.
Are these more resort-oriented properties and things like that? Right. Yeah. When you do something like that, where there's value, there has to be value of downloading the app and keeping it or retaining it. Yeah, it's got to do something for you. And the best thing is, and certainly that's going to be the strategy of, you know, all the majors too, right? Because it's, yes, they definitely want you to use the app because that's going to be not the only way, but it's going to be the way you open the door. It's going to be the way you validate. So you can stream Netflix on the glass that's hanging on the wall instead of having to watch it on your phone. You know, sort of thing. And that's it. You make it centric, and then all of a sudden, then the loyalty programs are going to start expanding out more into being relevant all the time, being part of your lifestyle as opposed to just when you travel.
I think also to validate what you're saying, Stuart, too, is as we are data hungry. Right now, it's a free for all where we can stuff our data tracking. And as we get more mature into the mindset of the data being the real value proposition, that
it's the crown jewels, one might say, right?
Yes, one might say, yes. Where is
Ted might say that.
Ted might say that. Ted might say this. And he says, Ted down here, you know. But the idea of it is
Ted Peters.
Ted Peters. Oh, he's got to come back just to give us crap. Anyway, we're going to need that isolation that the app provides because we're going to get very possessive of the data. We don't want to share it through another stream and another product. And as things go, especially with the lead from the European community at this point, Google is going to start getting fences. I mean, they're going to have to start this. So we had this conversation on a live show a few weeks back, maybe a couple of months, about that. Where's the limit capacity of the biasness of Google's presentation of content in comparison to the neutrality that it's supposed to represent? And is that going to keep getting pursued in the European community where it's like, no, you can't do both. You can't advertise and display unbiasedly because you're not doing that. You're actually biasedly displaying data. So maybe these fences get created, and the best thing for our industry is to say, let's create the relationship directly with the guest. And the best methodology is by isolating them on a platform that we would be controlling, as in an app interface. So,
yeah,
I think it adds to that.
That actually goes. I have a posting here. I can go plug it in, which is Hilton and Marriott are looking at the internet things to transform this hotel room experience, and it all ties into this app, and that is what is really going to turn things. Very intelligent person that the Skiff people. I can't remember the guy's name that they asked about on this thing, but really.
I don't know. Like I think it was a lone wolf dude that has some wild ideas thing. I think he's a loner. I don't think he's in mainstream at all. I don't think he knows what he's talking about.
but anyway, the interesting thing is on the voice side of it. I don't know. It's not necessarily in the Marriott one. Hilton maybe thinking they're kind of a version behind where the world is, and again. They're looking forward. This stuff isn't going to be rolled out in all these hotels, next month.
If you ask Hilton,
sort of thing, it's going to be a year or two.
Hilton's always great about putting it in one hotel and saying, yes, Hilton Worldwide has this functionality.
Yeah.
It's like in one
hotel. Well, and they are a little bit they are ahead because of the platform they're using for their room selection, things like that, does let you pick the exact room and do some things and make some changes where other guys can't do it. So they have a little bit of a lead, but boy, once you get into the in-room stuff where my perspective is it's going to be you walk onto the property. Well, actually even doesn't matter. You land at the airport or something like that. If you have that app, it's like, yep, what room do you want? Here you go. Do you want to upgrade? For whatever, we've got this because it knows occupied, vacant, dirty, clean status, so you can say, hey, here's an opportunity. There's some sort of strategy to properly upgrade the right people.
Yep.
You can say, I want that. I want to pay. I don't want to pay. Whatever the case may be, you get into the property, you seamlessly onboard onto their Wi-Fi, right, through either Passpoint or something, something similar. You use the thing to get, open the door in your room. Probably have navigation of where, if you're in a big hotel, if you're, wander into, heaven forbid, the Mirage or something like that. How do I even get to the room? Which bank of elevators do I turn left or right to even get up there? And then, the hotel knowing if you're in the room or not, should your luggage be delivered, timing all that stuff out. And then you get AI working on that. And then you come in and go, hey, show Stranger Things on the TV. That sort of, and it should be able to validate. Yeah, I know that it's Stuart. And yes, we validated his identity because we know who he is. And he's got God knows, a Spectrum thing. And that gives them access to, or not to Netflix, but that gives them access to HBO. So we can now use HBO Go to go throw Game of Thrones on or something like that. Or yes, he's got Netflix and he got that too. It doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter if the deals the hotel has. They can stream it. Maybe it isn't going through your device. It's going through the hotel's pipes. But that's the end game. I mean, and just really seamlessly do it because that's how people are going to be. Yeah. People walk into their houses now and say that. Right, with their Google Home or their Alexa.
Exactly, and I think it's going to get even more extreme because you're saying things like it says you can pick your room. I think it's going to tell you which room is best for you based on previous behavior, what it knows about you. I think when you walk into the room, the temperature is going to be right, the lighting is going to be right. It's just going to build this profile over time where it has affected the existence of you and what you want and expect out of a stay. That's
or it's talking to your Nest because you're whatever.
Yeah.
It knows what temperatures you like to sleep at versus during the day. Go, yeah, we got that. We can keep that just fine. Yeah,
I don't know if you all know Dwayne well. I know him not personally, but I've engaged with him. I've been on the stage with him a couple of times and so forth. And he's a mix. There's times where I'm very impressed with his insight, and there's other times I'm like, dude, that's a little obvious.
Dwayne from maybe a last name or an organization?
The article I posted up. Sorry.
Okay.
The link that I had put up there on voice activated command, Forrester. He was with Microsoft for the longest time.
I thought you were talking about Dwayne Johnson for a while, The Rock.
Oh, yeah.
The Rock.
Stage with him many times.
Yeah, hang out with him a lot. No, Dwayne Forrester, he was with Microsoft for a long time. Left them where he dove into for a little while. Now he's over at Yext, which is baffling me as why he would do that, because I'm not a massive fan of them. But
he left Forrester for Yext, huh?
Yeah, no, I don't think it was with Forrester, but
anyway.
His name's
I'm sorry. His name's
Forrester,
Dwayne Forrester. Oh,
yeah.
Okay, got it.
Of the house.
So anyway, it was interesting that Google. I threw that up as a snippet from the little article thing that I put up as a link. That 20% of all mobile queries now are voice searches to that, and to the discussion we're having about the technologies and so forth is we're going to be. To me, it's going to be that interface that we keep talking about with these watches and so forth, that it's more the engagement as we roll forward. We're going to be engaged with more and more inert technology and not so much having to carry it with us as we are the catalyst for its activation.
Right.
And to that end, I mean, already we made fun of it. We joked about the fact that QR codes are getting a second life because iPhone finally decided to integrate them into their photo usability.
Yep.
And for how many years have we had the good bad argument about QR codes are walking dead? They're just an interim bridge from what it's going to be. It's going to be NFC. It's going to be this, and it never has. It still works because it solves some fundamental things that nothing else has yet to solve.
It's really cheap to go do it. You don't have to go put sensors and do this. And if things aren't working quite right, yeah.
And in the language diversification that you can still allow people to communicate. I mean, again, if anybody that's traveled into the Asian Pacific region, there's QR codes on everything because the TV show has a QR code on the corner of it, kind of thing, so that you can go to whatever it is they're talking about in the language that you need, which is the big facilitator for that. But to that end, 20% now. I mean, you figure that another Christmas is rolling through now, and Amazon is rolled out their 3 flavors of Amazon Echo now. Multi-room music and all these other things that are now technology enhancements, not just the ability of the Echo to use itself or Amazon Alexa to use. It's the ability to be diverse in the different rooms, communicate differently, connect differently, technology-wise. That Apple is going to roll out. I think a little too late. The fact that it's going to sound good for $400. I think, man, it's got to be doing something else. Yeah.
This is one where their price point is not going to help them. I think this is a massive
People love Apple though. They said that about would people pay $1,000 for a phone? Would they pay, $400 for a watch? Or whatever.
This seems like a very expensive music player. I'm sorry. It's just I'm an Apple fanatic. I mean, I got everything Apple, pencil, pen, keyboard, everything else. I mean, and I don't see why I'm going to drop $400 just because I have another.
Less utility for a lot more money. Say an iPhone 10, you're not really paying $1,000 for a phone. You're paying $1,000 to be able to send people an emojis to tell them that you have a $1,000 phone, right? It's
as a unicorn. As a unicorn.
Exactly. So
it's the same thing as a MacBook Pro. It's the Apple logo and the look, the brush silver. You go look at what I've got, and it says something about you as an individual. And that's great. Now the one that being a not Apple guy, even though the women in my household are all dyed-in-the-wool Apple people. The Google Assistant, let me tell you, has one leg up certainly on Amazon, because they've unified the platform to the Google Home and the phone, and certainly to Chromebooks and things like that. So if somebody gets into like Google Universe, it's the whole thing, the scalability and the network effect of more data. And you just go, we now know what they just made an upgrade. Before I couldn't ask Google, or I couldn't ask my phone for directions, right? I'd like do driving directions in the house, and the stupid Google Home would go, oh, I can't tell you driving directions. It's like, well, yeah, I know, because my phone's listening to it. This is doing it. Send it to the phone. Well, now it does that, right? They've figured that sort of thing out. And
you mentioned Beta and VHS earlier. I mean, that's a great example of the best technology doesn't always win, right? VHS crushed Beta, and Beta was so much superior. And I think Amazon, given that they have this stronghold on the consumer through online purchases, it's going to be tough to catch up with them.
It's going to be tough.
If anyone can, Google can, but I think
I have Google at home. I have Amazon, but I use Google. I don't see Apple being replacing any of this. And to your point, Robert, it's like my wife is on. She has an S8, and so she's on Android platform, and it keeps track of her versus me. And I had it set up that whenever I have something scheduled, it'll actually pipe up and remind me, say, "Hey, Lauren, as a reminder, you have 11 o'clock such and such." wickedly helpful, because even with watch and technology and everything else, just that voice popping up and saying, "Hey, you got an 11 o'clock call" or something like that is a gentle reminder as if you had an assistant.
Well, no, and I've bridged our Google Home and calendar over. And Stuart, my wife's the same thing. Not technically oriented and just has zero interest in the technology. Right. But let me tell you, she'll leave and ask Google Home how long is it going to take to get to a certain place driving or something like that, so she knows what's going on with traffic. It has her schedule, it's popping up things, and but I had to set up a Google, a Gmail account for her, then bridge it over to iCloud and all that crap, which is just, Apple makes that so hard, right? Intentionally just the walled garden is just a pain in the ass. But all of a sudden she can now, she's getting reminders of it's time to leave for work, because it's the Google world with Google Maps and driving directions and all that stuff, which is helping her despite her, being on an iPhone 7. So
right, and this all ties back to the previous conversation about the Internet of Things in the hotel room, right? And if I go into a hotel now that doesn't have Netflix, I'm pissed. It's one of the questions I ask, right?
Right.
And it's going to be the same with voice search. As that becomes mass market penetration, we're going to expect the same creature comforts in the hotel that we have. We don't want to pay to go to somewhere luxurious that has less mod cons than our house does. Just like when Wi-Fi came out, right? Just now with Netflix and streaming services, and it's going to be the same with voice search.
And if you go to an Airbnb, you're probably going to get it, right? So if they have a good, if they've got they go, we got Apple TV and all that stuff. Yeah, you're going to have to log in or whatever.
And if Ed was here, he'd say, but there's safety and security and people being monitored. But people don't care. They're buying these in droves. They just don't care, unless you're Ed, and then you care.
Then you care. Yeah. But then,
people will always trade, convenience, facility, speed, for privacy, because they go, I got nothing to hide. I don't care.
One other amplification to that too is that there is an aspect of travel for people that no matter how much of a seasoned traveler you are, there's a disorientation when you get somewhere. You don't know where to eat all the time. You don't know what to do or what's available all the time, and you get inundated by the white noise of whatever the hotel might be trying to shove at you. Come to our restaurant, this and this, and inherently there's probably better places to eat, but the convenience and the familiarity or the awareness is easier.
Problem. But that's the problem. The hotel needs to figure out what is the best solution for the customer and weigh that against their P&L and go, bring your family into the Japanese restaurant because they're looking for a bunch of covers. It's like, that may not be the best, best fit sort of thing.
Right.
So,
and that goes where this personalization, voice activation comes in, because if this is being brought in as a technology base, so when you walk into the hotel room and whatever interaction you have with this new advanced engagement that you have in the room, this all comes with you because your identity comes with you at the surrendering of privacy, yes. But now when you walk in, then it can be like, hey, there's a great Japanese restaurant right around the corner because AKA that's what you love to eat. And guess what? They have a discount if you come from the hotel or whatever, and create, and now all this now is being handed to you, because I don't know how many times, as much as I try to plan 4 trips, when I'm there, I'm going to do this or something. I get there, I still end up opening up the same type of apps, the Yelps of the world and stuff, and just to thumb through did I miss something. Now that I'm here, other things show up. It's like the brochure rack. Remember the old brochure racks? There was always, no matter how much technology and internet happened, you go and the hotels still have a brochure rack. There's still some businesses, the only thing that they have to tell you that they're in existence is in the brochure rack. They don't even have a website or something.
Yeah,
and you find out
every one of them, every hotel here.
And there's always something in the brochure rack that you cannot find anywhere else. It's like Joe's charter boat, Joe does not even have a phone. You just have to stand at the corner and he'll pick you up, kind of thing.
we found that for a swamp tour in New Orleans. It was great. It was fantastic, and could not really find it other places. It was great just because they weren't very good. They weren't very good marketers, right?
I've so stopped looking at local restaurants and so forth where I want to check out their menu, and no website, no menu. Their domain name, just because I'm thinking that they would actually buy it, doesn't exist. It's for sale, or somebody else has it doing something else with it. Facebook, their page isn't claimed. Google on the map, their location isn't claimed. And I'm sitting here going, if I was a malicious person, or like these people that do the deliveries, I'd snarf all these up, because in Key West, places like that, or Myrtle Beach that are mature tourist markets, there's little hijackers all over the place that swamp up the names that weren't properly grabbed, and they represent as themselves, and then just sell through them as them. There's a guy down in Key West that was famous for that he would literally buy the name. I had to do a cease and desist, and we had to sue him because he had grabbed the domain name for one of the hotels that I was responsible for before the hotel realized to even buy their own domain name.
Yeah.
And so he was selling it through an affiliate program for God knows how long, and scrape right off of the website for the hotel and put it on his as if it was him. I mean,
well, and actually, Catherine Luger, who's the head of the American Hotel and Lodging Association, that is their big thing to vilify the OTAs. Actually, they're blaming it on OTAs, that affiliates are out there doing these things to go do it, and the OTAs need to crack down because they're breaking the rules, and basically saying, yes, there's X billions of dollars in fraudulent hotel bookings, and they aren't really fraudulent bookings. I mean, they're getting booked with a hotel. I mean, there may be some where, yes, they take the money and disappear, but that's probably relatively limited.
It's a small number. We run
very small. Yeah, it can happen, but most of it is, it got booked through an affiliate, and they thought it was the hotel direct or whatever, and they didn't know. And guess what? The guest probably didn't care, because if the pricing was the same or the pricing was maybe lower, they could care less. Now, the interesting thing, though, to add to that is this brings up two things. One is Google, with its Trips app, has some pretty amazing stuff, because number one, it's seamless. It's going and looking at your inbox, picking up your reservations, figuring out where you're going, and then it has all these little tabs like food and drink. So, for example, I've got going to Austin, I've got high-end dining on a budget, family-friendly, breakfast and lunch, barbecue, Tex-Mex, breakfast tacos, and patio drinks. So they've figured out, and that's under their top spots, right? And each one has, two defaulting, and then you go to a list of a whole bunch of them, right? Probably 10. For the hotels with food and beverage outlets and bars and things like that, you need to start, cultivating those reviews, those relationships, scoring high, so Google will put you in. Because right now, I don't think this is advertising based. I think this is more contextual relevance based, where they want to get the best stuff in there so people have a good experience. And again, it's one of those windows where I don't know if it's going to shut or not. Google has that balancing act of doing what's best for the user versus what monetizes best, and they've got to figure out. But it will start getting cloudy at some point. But but that's really helpful stuff that many times a concierge isn't going to give you, because concierge high-end dining, they're going to recommend the places, giving the guy the best tip, right, or the best finder's fee. Tell him Lenny sent you, sort of thing, and Lenny's making out like a bandit, and you're going to some place which is probably good, but not, not the best. Right. But again, breakfast tacos, Tex-Mex, patio drinks, barbecue, things that people do in Austin, it's figured out. When you go and look at New York, it doesn't have Tex-Mex and breakfast tacos, and it probably has rooftop bars and whatever great views or whatever's relevant to people who travel to New York.
Well, tying this to one of our previous guest hosts that we just had, Alex from Alice, this falls into a little bit of realm too with the communication value. We know that these technologies are going to be stepping in. The voice command and interfaces, the technology infusion into the rooms for those that the high-end places or the more affluent places will be first adopters for. But from a usability point of view for people in the hospitality industry now, Stuart, with your app interface where you can engage and help communicate with the guest now, and like with Alice, where you have an engagement directly with the hotel for guest services and so forth. Now there's functionalities that can be done now with hotels that don't have to be the biggest, best, and brightest and destination based and massive resorts. They can be your daily hotel place, airport driven, downtown driven, urban driven, whatever, that just by improving this value, by using those kind of things, like when you have Stuart and things like with Alice and so forth, immediate gratification and validation for whatever cost was generated to produce that kind of stuff.
For sure. And we found a direct correlation between the amount you communicate with your guest and the guest satisfaction and the amount of money they spend. So
Right.
if you use these kind of tools to give the guest a better experience by communicating, not only are they going to spend more money while they're on property, but they're also going to leave better reviews, which means you can increase your ADR over time, right? So the more you talk to your guests, the more money you make, and the more people that will come to stay with you. So, and it's not expensive. You don't have to go build your own custom communication tool for hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, you can get the base level Guest Express or an Alice for like a couple of $100 a month. It's very easy to get into this game right now.
But again, when you get something like Alice, the big down, and it's nothing against Alex, but you need staff who can respond to these things too. Right, so you have to be geared up where if people are looking, if you have it set up for people needing it or going. And again, I think Alex does a good job of working with the hotels and going, okay, you're just going to be using this for back of house and not a lot of guest facing, stuff, or where you're just going to keep track of what's going on. That's fine, but once you start kind of setting those expectations of, at any time, and it's 2 a.m. and all of a sudden, whatever happened in town, the concert that a bunch of people were coming in, and they all come back and they're hungry and looking for food and who knows what, you got to get back to them. Right?
You've got to have the right communication, right? You've got to set the right expectations. But if a guest wants to communicate with you by whatever method it is, then you should treat that the same way you would treat a phone call, right? So it goes back to, I tell people all the time that are reluctant to put live chat on their website. You have someone that potentially is going to stay with you or is already booked with you that needs to solve a problem, answer a question. If they were picking up the phone to call you, you wouldn't even think twice, but to make sure you had enough stuff to handle that. So why is live chat or text message or anything else any difference? It's no different, though, right?
Answering, you might get an operator, but can they actually help you? And then they go to the front desk, you get put on hold. Yeah,
that's the people that are doing it poorly. I mean, the good ones always. I mean, you're going to always make sure that whatever method, to your point, Stuart. I mean, if you're going to do the hospitality industry, you have to provide hospitality. Not being available for communication is not hospitable. I mean, we'll take your money, but we won't talk your time. Yeah,
we're innkeepers. We are in the hospitality business. If we want to just sit back and let guests be a commodity, then Airbnb is going to kick our ass every single time.
And all the competitive hotels. That's right.
Right.
So you can be in the shelter business
like an individual and communicate with the way they want to communicate with you.
Well, and that's always been my point, is if you want to be in the shelter business, you can have a boxed room with a door, right? That people go in, and it's climate controlled.
And there's a market for
whatever.
That, for sure.
Yeah.
There's a market for that.
And there's no bed, there's no furniture, and I don't know. Maybe there's facilities in the room or down the hall. Right? Sure. I don't know. There's a whole spectrum of people being perfect for that market. But if you want a higher ADR, and you may get return guests at that. People go, this is great. I bring my bedroll and I can stay for cheap in this location and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. Now I don't know. That's fine. But if you're trying to get more ADR and satisfied guests and them telling about what a great stay they had, it exceeded your expectations, these guys are fantastic. Yeah, you need to provide something more. And the differentiator isn't going to necessarily be a better mattress may help, and better lighting in the bathroom may, all that stuff. Yes. But at some point, all that stuff can be copied, but the service side is what's going to make the difference.
Right.
And
how many reviews?
Better ADR. Yeah, give you a better ADR, give you a higher net promoter score, all the metrics you made, and the review is the outcome that then feeds the cycle of other people go, hey, people like this.
Exactly.
And better hotels get higher rates. Right.
And to that end, you need to make availability to people to give you your feedback. That I find that a lot of hotels try to either put a blind eye or head in the sand about making that communication link of please let us know what's going on, or how can we make your stay with us while you're with us the best that we can, rather than like fingers crossed, hope they don't say anything good, they're gone, and then not even giving them the opportunity to give you feedback afterwards. As if you're afraid of it, which if that means that you already know your limitations as to service quality, and you're hoping that they don't surface enough that actually hurts your business model. One of the things
I've got an ethic. We should have a section on here. We should have the ethics corner. It's time for Ethics Corner.
It's time for ethics.
Here's a question on reviews, right? A lot of hotels now, and I'm not sure if this is a best practice or a worst practice because it involves my creepy line that I like to talk about. So hotels that come in, okay, here's your post-stay review or on checkout or whatever. It says, so how did you like things? Or basic net promoter, and you give it a 3 or something like that. They will channel the guest off into a portion which says, oh, we want to help you and answer your questions. No access to reviews or any sort of recommendation to give a review or anything like that. It's like, let's put them over here and make sure we clamp them down and they don't talk to anybody. Make this very different. Versus if you get a 4 or 5, you send them down the, hey, yes, here, please give us reviews on all this stuff. Is that a best practice, worst practice, ethical, unethical?
I don't think I don't think it's an ethical question. I think if you were to prohibit someone from leaving a review, that would borderline ethics, or that would be an ethics. But they can still go. They have the choice to go to TripAdvisor and leave a review. I think what you're talking about is just
you're facilitating to make it really easy.
Behavioral economics,
on,
right? We're creating nudges in a direction that's favorable for us and ultimately the guests. So, our clients do it.
Well,
that way.
I don't know. I don't know. Well, the nudge to the positive review is good for the hotel. The lack of a nudge to we did a bad job and not doing review isn't necessarily good for the next guest, right?
Right. So the good hotels,
if you're going to fix it, yes.
Yeah, they take the negative and they learn from it and they improve it, and more importantly, they make up for it with that guest. If you're doing it with the right agenda, I think no question it's ethical and probably the best thing for your business.
I would do the same caveat you're saying. Is like, actually my recommendation with clients when we do make the reactions to Ed's calling. Why is Ed calling in the middle of the show? Ed, you know better.
So you can put him on speaker. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah. He's done. Okay. The what you do with the negative or the low rated review is I always recommend you immediately prioritize that. That is a person that is willing to tell you something's wrong, which means you have a recovery possibility with them now. You can do something to make that, because you can't stop them from doing reviews. To your point, Robert, hey, if I give you some helpful links because you had a positive experience, I want to think that if you're willing to say things were good, I want to help you with that process. I'm not against that aspect of it. I am against the aspect that you point out that says if you give me a poor review, I start closing doors or confining what I think. That's sand through fingers. You can't stop that. If they've had such a poor experience that they're willing to share that they had a poor experience with you, they're going to share that whether you're helping them with it or not. But if you prioritize that ability to get to them and identify specifically with them and find if there's a way to correct for that, if there's still a redeemable thing you can do, that should be the highest priority at that point. That person should actually go on a fast track communication.
Well,
and the best part, they're doing it before they leave, right? You should know when a guest is about to leave how the experience was. A lot more people, especially if you've got a mobile app, you can communicate with during the stay. You can send them during stay questions to get a litmus test for how the experience is going and fix it before they leave. That's the ideal scenario for me.
Yeah, and the secret to look at library hotels, right? What Adele Gutman has done there, they are all about preventing the situation of people having a bad experience. They want to know about it. It's just like, hey, we are here, and they've set up processes to make sure that there's opportunities at every turn for someone to say, hey, here's something going on.
Ed,
you're on the.
Sending them down a path where you can service recover is a very smart thing to do, especially if you do service recovery.
I saw you on the Facebook. I'm like, oh, there it is.
Shooting yourself in the foot by taking someone who just finished telling you they have a problem and going, great, go to TripAdvisor, is foolish.
Yes, agreed.
But I have heard from some individuals.
Oh my God. Put me on speaker.
You're on speaker. You're on speaker. We got you.
No. But
so it's definitely not an ethical question. Service recovery is, a brilliant strategy, and I agree with Stuart. You should be attempting to proactively find opportunity for service recovery instead.
Yep. Yep.
No, there's some in the consumer protection realm.
I love this show.
What was it? Hey Ed, first what was it? Long time listener, first time caller.
Actually, long time talker, first time listener.
I don't think you can hear. I don't think you can hear our side of it in time lapse. So we're probably got a delay for it. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna take you off the phone. And all right, bye.
Now, the only reason I asked, I had a conversation last week with someone who's more in the consumer protection sort of, area, who was saying that that's something they really want to target, right?
I've dealt with basically these are the clients that we don't like dealing with, where it's like, how can I get these bad reviews off, and can we chase these people down that are saying bad things about me and expose them as being bad people? And it's like, what do you know?
What these guys are trying to fight against, right? They're like, wait. How do you stop that kind of behavior?
Right.
And then they dug a little deeper and saw, oh wait, hotels are channeling this. So that's why I thought I would ask the question. I completely agree. The good hotels who want to go, honestly provide better experiences, solve problems, and not doing that. That's yes. You want to make sure that that's dealt with, because then they won't give a bad review because you did such a great job anyway.
Well, actually, I've always had, for those who are genuinely telling you what's wrong because they would hope that you would fix it, not just to bitch about it, but they would want a solution. If you create a solution for them, they turn into advocates so much easier than the average positive experience person, because they presented an issue, you've gone beyond the normal spectrum of what they perceived as hospitality, which created the issue, and now they feel like they need to tell people, these guys, I really thought they sucked, but they did such a great job of solving what I had as a problem that I like them. If you're going to go, they care about what they're doing, that kind of thing.
Well, and especially if that organization has a bunch of operational processes to avoid problems in the future, and you have had such a unique, weird, unanticipated situation that maybe it wasn't preventable, right? It's just like, how the hell did that happen?
And that goes to the posting I put up there on the other article I wanted to bring up, because I thought it made some very good points in it. 6 ways hotels can prevent and prepare for crisis situations. It sounds like rhetoric. I mean, obviously you can state some, obvious things, and I'm still a little confused as to the outcome of what happened in Las Vegas, as to what does that mean for MGM in the long run, as to what they did or didn't do and how they did or didn't do things, because this is a sad thing to say, probably not the last time that something like this may happen in a hospitality-based business, as tragic as it is. But with this, I did notice a couple of things. We get a little complacent on our crisis program. It's a book that's laid out. If you're a brand hotel, it's pretty staged out. And you rely on the fact that the brand knows what to do. And having had personal experience where in a hotel, all of a sudden the news media was at your front door, at your front desk, and you're there and you're it, regardless of brand or not, you need to know some things. And I think a couple of great points out of the article was, create those local collaborations now. Talk to your local crisis people, your sheriffs and your city municipalities now, as to who is in the space and who are resources and what is it that they have and whom is the contacts and who are you in your organization as contacts, and clarify all that now, rather than being introduced in a crisis situation to them or not being aware of them or what have you. I thought it was a really good point that they made as some of the steps. Any perspectives from you guys on that one?
It's a good article. I mean, I think it's critically important that anyone that has any kind of interaction with the media at large or can be a spokesperson has to have media training. They have to be taught, when it's appropriate to communicate, when it's not. And in a severe situation like this, where there's some kind of disaster or natural event, whatever it is, I think communication is critical. I mean, we look how much damage can be done with a rogue tweet these days, So limiting the rules of engagement. Oftentimes, what we recommend for our clients when something major is happening is have one single point, a conduit by which all communication flows in and out, because the wrong things at the wrong time can make a bad situation a lot worse for a lot of people. And emotions are really driving decisions at that point, and that's the worst time to be communicating, is when you're emotional about something.
Yeah.
Yes, and also under stress, because it creates an artificial priority system. because there's a whirlwind of things going on. You're dealing with, especially in the management role, you need to make sure that your team and your staff, you're the calming on the water, because they're also in the heightened sense at that moment.
Right.
Too.
And there's a balance between giving out information that's required to be helpful and stuff that's going to add fan to the flame, as it were. So you'll be careful about what you communicate. No communication can often be more damaging than some communication, but there's a real delicate balance. You don't want to add to it. And the worst thing you can do is try to capitalize on it. You see people continue to take advantage of bad situations by trying to sell themselves or inject themselves
and that can be a very delicate situation, because you had, I think, with Puerto Rico, which is still just in a horrible state. St. Lucia was trying to, in fairness to St. Lucia, was trying to say, hey, the Caribbean wasn't wiped out, we're great, come down here, and you kind of go, well, that's a reasonable sort of thing. But, they got a lot of flack for promoting, and they're like, well, yeah, people who would normally go to Puerto Rico come here. They didn't come out and say that, but that was kind of a subtext.
And I don't feel like that's too bad. I mean, I feel like what else can they do?
Yeah.
That's legitimate. But I think when you're next to the MGM and you say that we have better security than them or something like that, then that. That's probably crossing the line.
Well, and hotels operationally are going to have to figure that out, because right after that happened, there were discussions of metal detectors and TSA-like security. Just really, crazy.
Knee-jerk, over the top.
One thing, because I'm going to have to leave quickly because I've got another damn client I got to talk to right after this.
What?
I hope they don't listen to this.
I got to before.
What kind of client was that, Robert? What damn client you said?
Yeah.
And the name is? Let me send a text.
No, it's not. Actually, looking for it's going to be a very interesting call. Actually,
sure. Yeah, of course. Oh, you're
backtracking now.
Yeah.
No,
that chain's going to bust on the bike, man. The chain's going to bust.
I was just being snarky for the benefit of the show. Actually, I am looking forward, because it's a very non-traditional call, which will be very interesting. But one thing I wanted to talk about was the Dallas hotel conference that I went to, which had 700 developers and owners, things like that. Very little representation. Well, some people from brands, some of the franchise people and things like that. But I'll post in the notes. There's a big list of all these comments. But it was very interesting. So a lot of folks started dissing the brands right off. So a guy, Dan Lesser, who's with a advisory company, advises on a lot of deals, asked for a show of hands. How many people think we need more hotel brands?
I love that question.
Not one hand raised.
Can't get enough brand.
Yeah. Then Dave Johnson at Aimbridge Hospitality, very large company. It goes, in the upcycle, hotel brands do well. During the next downturn, there will be lots of brand contraction. There are too many brands, right? Doug Kessler, Ashford Hospitality Trust, another very large firm. They prefer to acquire unencumbered assets. That means that they are not managed by hotel brands. They prefer third-party management, sort of thing. Then, Starwood Capital, another, very top flight group. Hotel groups are building the brands off the backs of the developers. It's not their money, but we are buying what they're selling. Sort of thing. And then
but they don't have a choice, right? Because of the financing situation right now. Banks won't loan people unless you're fine.
CEO of Langham Hotels. If you realistically look at the amount of money spent to sell a room night with a brand, you have to remember that 100% of those bookings are not because of the brand, right? Yep. And then the weirdest one, Neil Shaw of Herschel Hospitality, who I tried to track down. I think he left right after his panel. Said if Google or Amazon can bring commissions down to 4 to 5% without last room availability, I'm all for it. And I thought, oh dear Lord, be careful what you wish for, because
it's coming.
If that happens,
and it will probably be 7 or 8 or 9 or 10%, and people will still love it.
Oh no, they might start on a bid basis that's what TripAdvisor is going to do with their instant booking. It was going to be a CPA auction, right, with a floor of 6%. which, you know, if he's looking 4 to 5, 6, he'll probably bite on, right? But then that gets bid up, and all of a sudden you are bidding for all of that, what used to be organic travel, and all of a sudden no traveler is free anymore, and it's going to get bid up to wherever the market will bear. And are you willing to bid, you know, whatever 8% to get it through your channel or not? I mean, what did Cindy Estes Green came out and said it was 8.5%, you know, favorable cost or whatever for a hotel having a direct booking. It was like, well, how much are you willing to bid to get it off of the, you know, off of the OTA number, right? Which is
but then you've got to compound the OTA or whatever that source is percentage plus, then you've got the flag percentage that you're paying, right?
So, absolutely. I mean, you know, and again, I hope we can have Cindy on it because those numbers aren't in her, and it's over for a lot of these hotels. It's over a third of their gross, you know, hotel revenue is getting sucked down in fees to a wide variety of groups with their mouths open, in addition to the tech side where everything is going SaaS. And boy, when all these guys are just going, hey, it's only $1 a room, you know, a year, or those are kind of fixed fees. And when all of a sudden the volume's down, you're going to have this whole tech stack where you go, crap, this just got expensive.
Yes. Yeah. So, well, death of 1,000 cuts, basically. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, a couple of just quick things. There's tons of money out there, and growing diversity of capital, which is good. A lot of high net worth individuals are going and buying these things. Coastal markets, iconic resorts, areas with job growth are getting a lot of the capital. Everybody else is getting nothing. And then, I love this comment by the Starwood Capital guy. While we're trying to figure out if Airbnb will have an impact in our space, they're picking demand out of our back pocket while we're worrying about pennies. And it's like, yep, that's pretty true. And then the last one was, again, the CEO of Aimbridge. What keeps him up at night? He said, immigration. I worry about how we're going to hire enough people to staff all the hotels we're developing. And that is a challenge. So, you know, and again, you've got the HNLA who is very much against the $15, you know, the working wage and $15 minimum wage and things like that. I mean, they are beating it down aggressively. And Catherine Luger, like it or not, has moved it. She said that when she started 4 years ago, and HNLA is basically the big hotel lobby. They were in the bottom third of political action committees, right? Nationally, they are now in the top 2%. Wow. So they have really activated the industry to go, and they now have access to senators and congressmen to go say, we want you to do this for the hotel industry. Now, is that good or bad for hotel guests? Maybe, may be debatable, because they're still on the keep the resort fees, don't do stuff like that, which we'll see. There's going to be a new head of the Federal Trade Commission. That things are not looking good for consumer groups who are looking to rein in resort fees and things like that, I would have to say. So.
Well, we're probably not going to, if we start talking politics, we're going to go off in a whole nother bad angle, because there's a whole lot of bad going on right now anyway.
Yeah. You had me post where you get your information for politics. So, yeah.
You know what? I guess with you having to leave and Stuart, I actually have to talk to you. I have to talk to Stuart. With that, I say we call it an hour and a half as a show. I mean, Ed's not here.
You can just talk to each other live on whatever you're talking, and it'd probably be a really interesting conversation about what's happening in real life at a hotel and how Stuart would deal with that.
It would destroy our public personas, though. People
yes. They would see the dark underside of it all. But Mr. Roberts, since you are having to talk to a client, where can people find out more about you and your political opinions?
Oh, my political opinions, I guess you got to go to Facebook. But otherwise on all social, well, actually for Facebook, it is Robert K. Cole. I'm pretty consistently across social media. So yeah, you can see what I think if I've posted it publicly. But political stuff, I don't really post publicly that much. That or rockcheetah.com.
Excellent. And Mr. Stewart, for those who want to know more about yourself or Fuel Travel, where can they find you?
They can find us at fueltravel.com or on Twitter at Fuel Travel, and then you can check us out weekly on the Fuel Podcast, which you just search for Fuel Hotel Marketing on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And then if you want to talk about Star Wars, then at Stuart Butler would be the place to be.
And actually, because Ed's not here, if you want to see a really good football team with a great offense play, I mean, you see Texas Tech playing TCU this weekend. I will be there.
Yeah, there. Oh no, he's still on there, so I haven't seen him post anything on Facebook for it yet. But
we'll see.
Yeah, no,
always fun to bait Ed.
Yes, no, especially here. Ted Peters, not here, but I can't recommend enough your podcast. It is one of the ones I actually legitimately, persistently listen to each and every week. You guys cover great topics, very well structured, very concise.
And you're back to weekly now. Which is...
We are, we're doing one today on reducing friction in the booking process. So back to nudging people through, and then clearing the way so that it's
nice.
minimum.
Just do what Lauren recommends to his clients. Just cut your prices by 35%. Boom! Conversions skyrockets.
Go for the basement rates, yes. For those who want to catch the links for everything we talked about and for some topics we didn't get to and show notes and timings and player and all that, you can go to hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live or to the post. Same thing, hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/119, show 119. With that, gentlemen, thank you very, very much for the time. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to get to Ed today. Hopefully, we can get him on the show next week. We'll see if we can squeeze him in now. With that,
so there will be a show post-Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I tried to go over and say, I'll do a best of or recording. It's like, you know what? It's easier for me just to crank up the show. And if you would love to join, please do. If you're not sleeping from the turkey, I'm just going to hit
tryptophan. I'll try to rise from my tryptophan-induced coma.
Yes. Yeah, but even just if I'm running for a half hour and a couple of the highlights or something like that, I just like the consistency. But to bring up that point, and I will be putting this out on our calls as we keep going forward, is Friday still the best day? And is there another opportunity? I'm going to start asking the audience for feedback and post up on the site for people to say, is there a different day, different time? Just because we're getting closer towards the end of the year, maybe there's a preference that we shift. We originally started on Wednesdays 2 years ago, over 2 years ago. Then we shifted it a different time on Wednesday, and then we shifted it to Friday now. We've been doing Fridays for a year and a half, I think. So just if it's good, it's good.
Fridays are great because then people can watch it multiple times over the weekend and consider all the wisdom.
We get this crazy 2 week bump. Seriously, we get about 600 to 1,200 from when last I looked on the 3 platforms live and also during the week of, and then we get this 1,000+ bump 2 weeks later. It's like people watch the show 2 weeks after it's run. It's weird.
Maybe you got to figure out your SEO stuff where it's not getting pulled into the
I'm happy to pull the show up and then I can post and put it up. It's because it's not meant for money making. It's meant for the therapy that it provides us. So for me, it's like if it's just us, I'm even happy with that. To me, it's like I probably should spend some time figure out why that 2 week thing surges up. So, but anyway,
that's why you'll never see any of the 3 of us on the news as mass murderers because we have the show. It's so
that's right. We have the show. For our therapy sessions, we're saving ourselves money. Gentlemen, again, thank you so very much for the time and for Darlene, who was in the chat room, and I think Holly was in there too. But thank you all very much, and we'll see you all. Maybe next week. If not, happy Thanksgiving. And we'll catch you the show after that or something like that. Till then.
See you guys.
All right.